I'm going to let Alejandra do the introduction. So Alejandra, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for attending to this webinar. We are really happy to present our first live webinar ever. So we will be talking about how hiring a virtual assistant is the best move to grow your business, especially during this crisis. So we have Jaime Nacach here. He's our CEO and founder of Virtual Latinos. He will be hosting and answering all your questions after this webinar. So let's say hello to Jaime and let's start this webinar.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm going to give it a few more minutes right before I actually get started, just to make sure people come. I know some people get slightly late, which is fine. So this is me. I'm Jaime. And let me go to the next slide so you can learn a little bit more about me. So I am the founder of Virtual Latinos, which is a company that started about 2 years ago in January 2018. But we've been actually hiring assistants through our agency model for a little bit over a year. So that's been something that we've been focusing on lately. But originally, I actually started being an entrepreneur in the sense that I created first a marketing agency called Bluminati. I'm in San Diego, California, and that company's been running for about 6 years. It's still active. We still manage our clients, but definitely our focus as a company has changed. So we still have legally just one company called Bluminati, which is the marketing agency. Virtual Latinos is a brand within that. And as you're going to learn soon through this webinar, you're going to understand how hiring virtual assistants led me to, of course, help our business grow, as well as actually, in this case, shift the focus of our business to Virtual Latinos. You guys can definitely chat with us. There's a little chat thing on the side, so you can ask any questions. Alejandra is going to be helping me answer those questions if she knows the answer. Otherwise, I'm also here, and I'll be happy to answer anything. The webinar is going to take about 45 minutes, maybe a little bit less. So maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the end of the hour, I'll basically be opening up this so you can ask us any questions. I believe for now, all the questions are going to have to be typed. But then as we see them typed, we're going to start to answer the questions. All right. So let's get started at least with what we're going to talk about. For now, I'm going to actually hide my face a bit because I want to make sure that you can see the full presentation. So I believe that the pictures on the corner might be a little bit, distracting. So let me see there. I think, Alejandra, that looks good, right? Alejandra? Okay, maybe she muted herself. No problem. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today? Today, we're going to talk about these 5 things. The first thing is, it's important that you evaluate where you are standing right now as an entrepreneur and, where your business is currently so that we can focus on, figuring out how you can grow your business. Because depending on which stage of your business you're in, you're going to have to choose different strategies. Just a second. Okay, no problem. So, okay, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. The second is, I'm going to give different examples of what might be taking time away from your business in terms of, you focusing on growing the business as opposed to working inside the business. So I've been a part of many different, groups, and before COVID-19 happened, I was going to a lot of different events, working and meeting a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small business owners. And, most people, unfortunately, end up, spending their time working and managing their business because there's so many things to do, as opposed to having other people help them and them focusing on strategies and tasks that can help them grow the business to get more clients or other things, right? So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to talk about, why hiring a virtual assistant is a great idea, right? Which is kind of what the topic is all about. So if I go back to the title, for those who are just getting here, this is the title of this webinar: Why hiring a Latino virtual assistant is the smartest move to grow your business. So, why is this time really kind of one of the best times to start, growing your team with virtual people, right? And specifically, we're going to talk about why Latino virtual assistants is the smartest choice. Okay, so let's continue with that. Oh, and going back to the slide, then we're going to finish by talking about the specifics of why not just any virtual assistant, but virtual assistants located in Latin America. And then we're going to talk about the benefits of hiring specifically through our company. All right. So talking about the first few things, as an entrepreneur, there's always lots of different challenges that come with, starting or building or growing a business in general, right? The most obvious is usually cash flow. If you're, in a business that needs cash, and pretty much any business needs money to operate or begin something. There are very few that don't. So thinking about the cash is always important. Thinking about the competition, and then as you start to set up the business, assuming let's say that you're a small business, usually start with a really small team, maybe just you and a partner or somebody that's, really close to you. But eventually, things start to go well and you need to start delegating tasks, right? Because the only way to grow is to grow a team. And that's kind of what the focus of this webinar is going to be about, right? It's super important to think about how to build a great team, because if you ask most business owners, especially the successful ones, they're going to tell you that usually the key to growing and having a great business is their team, because us humans really make the difference. And by the way, let me put a little pause, because I'm a big fan of automation. So let me put my thing so that you can see me here for a second. I actually, within my marketing agency, I specialize in marketing automation. I use different systems for how to do as much stuff as possible, basically with a computer, right? So that we can automate as much of our work as possible. And even though I love that and I still do it, in fact, something you may not know, we've automated about, I'd say, close to 80% of the Virtual Latinos workflow from both sides of the spectrum for getting new virtual assistants to join us, as well as clients. We got a lot of different processes that are automated to help us basically do more with less human resources. Yet we still have a big team. I think it's big because before it was just me and my main virtual assistant for the marketing agency. In terms of building this new business, we had a whole other set of people working at the agency. But for this Virtual Latinos business, we were only really 2 people, and now we're 10. So I'm really happy about that. So building the team is super important. So let me go on with the rest. Now, this is an important slide that we kind of just created lately, and it's a chart I'd like to explain to you to understand really the different options and challenges of how you could grow your business, right? Specifically talking here about human resources and hiring people. So let me first explain what are the different axes. So on the bottom axis, you're going to see we're talking about highly skilled or low skilled team members. In this case, generally, we're talking about the team and the people. And on the y-axis, from top to bottom, we're talking about cost efficiency. So how well or how much of the money that you're investing is well invested in terms of what value you get for your money. And before I get into the specifics of explaining the chart, let me obviously say that the arrow, not the arrow, the line that you see that's 45-degree angle that says growth path, the green one that has a nice bucket at the top right, that represents the ideal balance between the skill of the team and the cost that you're paying to hiring that team. So the best balance would be right in the middle, where you have a perfect balance between the cost and the skills in terms of those assistants. So to explain the areas where you're not being efficient, we're going to explain an example on the bottom, on the top left. There's a blue dot, right? So on the y-axis, in terms of the cost efficiency, you can see that it says good cost efficiency. What is it, cost efficiency? Usually it means that if you're paying somebody really low, you're thinking that you're spending the least amount of money, so you're getting the best cost in terms of the lowest cost, which is why it says, poor cost efficiency, it usually means high cost, okay? And that's at the bottom, right? So poor cost efficiency means high cost, and good cost efficiency, in this case, could represent low cost, okay? So in this case, the example is a low-skilled Filipino assistant would be low-skilled because it's all the way to the left on the chart for the X. And then it's all the way at the top in terms of good cost efficiency because it's really low cost and low skilled. Now, When it happens with this extreme example means that, yeah, if you're paying somebody really low, okay, and they have really low skills, you're basically getting the most affordable type of assistant that you can help. I mean, the most affordable assistant that you can pay, right? But the problem there is you might not have that assistant help you with innovation. That person might not obviously have the skills necessary to help you not just do things, but help you do things better. And there's usually no strategic investment that person brings into your team. So everything above the green line, that whole triangle that's orange that says poor innovation, that's what that area represents. So that blue dot anywhere around that orange area in general would mean poor innovation because it's not the perfect balance between cost efficiency and great team. Now, let me go to the other opposite end. If we go to the bottom right, there's a blue dot also. In this case, it says highly skilled because it's all the way to the right. And because it's all the way at the bottom means poor cost efficiency. So in this case, the example could be either a highly skilled American virtual assistant or just maybe an in-house, very skilled employee in the US. Now, yes, if they're really skilled, that's great because they'll be able to provide a lot of innovation and a lot of strategic investment in that sense in terms of their skill. But if you're paying too much for it, for them, then you're not having great cost efficiency, right? In this case. Now, why do we say this specifically? It may not be true depending on what you are comparing, but because here we're talking about comparing the ability to hire somebody just as skilled as the assistant or the employee in the US, yet not have to pay as much money, that's where you would go up to the 45-degree line where you'd get the best balance. Why? Because whether it's in Latin America or in the Philippines or in India, there's definitely a lot of other alternatives for hiring people outside the US that can be just as skilled, but not as expensive, right? And this is kind of one of the reasons people work with virtual assistants in general. They want to still get the same quality of workforce, yet not necessarily have to pay as much. That's some of the reasons of why people obviously hire people outside the U.S. or just outsource even within the U.S. There's a lot of additional costs for hiring people in house, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But just to finalize this slide, so the ideal balance is that 45-degree angle. In this case, having somebody that's a good price, but it's also someone that has the right skills. And as you can see, that line really goes from the bottom left to the top right. So even within that line, there's obviously many different possibilities, right? Okay, so now think about as a business owner, what kind of business are you? Are you just a small one-person team that just got started, or maybe you've been actually working on your own for 10 or 20 years, and maybe you've been afraid to hire more people because you can do it all. There's nothing wrong with that, but obviously, if you're here listening to this webinar, is because you're interested in how to be able to do more with your time, right? So depending on which area you are in your business, you might need different type of help. So for example, we got clients that are in one opposite of the spectrum. It's people that actually just want to hire somebody as their personal assistant, maybe for their personal life. That would be like an extreme example because we only have very few of those. The most typical example is a small business that maybe has 2 or 3 employees, and now they want to be able to grow faster without having to spend a lot more money. So in this case, like a general virtual assistant would be good. Now, in the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're a company that already maybe has been established for 20, 30 years and maybe even has a team of 20 to 50 people, you can still hire virtual assistants or virtual remote workers. Now, in this case, you're probably going to be looking for more highly skilled assistants, right? Because you might already have a whole team of people that do a lot of different things. And now you want someone maybe, let's say, just for launching an advertising campaign, like a Google Ads expert. Or maybe you want somebody that creates content for your blog, if we're talking about marketing. Or maybe you need somebody for procurement. We have a client in San Diego that hires right now 13 people, and we're going to talk about that client in a minute. But yeah, he hires a lot of different people from us. So it's always important to understand where you are at today, so you can decide how you want to grow later. Now, one of the first things that people ask me when they're starting to talk to me, especially those who've never even been very accustomed to hiring anybody virtually, they're like, well, I'm not really sure what these people can do. and we're going to give a lot of examples at the end of the presentation. But um, the first thing that I had to do when I started hiring people outside the US was actually making a list of all the different things that I did. uh, and then I'm like, okay, how many of these things can I only do me because I think that I'm the best one to do it, and there's no way that I can teach it, as one extreme example. And what are all the other tasks that I'm sure that I can just give to someone else to help me do, right? So in general, you got to think about what's taking time away from you being able to focus on other things, right? So some companies do a lot of customer service support, or maybe a lot of calls, or they receive a lot of calls, or you're doing your own marketing, you're doing all your email marketing, your social media, or you're doing your own administrative task, whether that's accounting or anything related to administrative work, which there's a lot of, right? So think about what are the things that you're really spending too much time in that you probably shouldn't be doing, right? If it's anything that can be taught and that it's repetitive and that you maybe don't even enjoy doing, you should definitely have somebody else do it for you so you can focus on doing other things. And I'll give some examples about my specific case. Um, by the way, if you guys still have any comments or questions, feel free to, of course, just type them. And then even if I can't answer them right away, at least I'll have them here as well. So let me tell you here a bit about my personal experience. So I want to put the camera back on so you can see me. Um, Talking specifically about my marketing agency. So my entire team, which was up to 12 people, at the biggest team when we were the biggest team. We were all in the US, everybody in San Diego. I had not worked with anybody outside of the US before. Then I started, learning from different sources that people were hiring a lot of people in the Philippines. And I'm like, okay, this sounds very interesting. I bought a book. I started reading it. It was not the 4-hour work week, but a different one. And I learned all about, this whole new area that I'd never heard of, of recruiting and outsourcing things outside the US. And then I was at a point in my business that I realized, okay, I need to do something because there's a lot of competition in San Diego for marketing services. A lot. A lot of experts live here. There's a lot of marketing events happening here. So in order to compete, I had to either decrease costs or increase my prices. Our agency specifically focused on helping and working with small businesses, so I didn't really want to increase my pricing. What I wanted to do is just decrease costs. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I said, okay, let's do it, let's try it. And I chose to do everything on my own. So there's a website, which is sort of our competition, called onlinejobs.ph. You guys, if you've been doing a little research about that, you probably have found it. It's basically a website that works like a directory where you can hire lots of different people from the Philippines. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a job description, and then I'm going to post it. I'm going to pay. And then I got inundated by lots of people applying for my jobs. And I'm like, oh my God, now I need to go through all these different applications, figure out who's good, who's not good, and interview them, and then send them an agreement and go through the whole hiring process. So I did, and I spent a lot of time because I'm very, very particular in the type of people that I was looking for. And it took me at least a month and a half, almost 2 months to finalize the whole recruitment process and finally, hire someone. So I hired someone, and the first experience was actually really bad. So I'm like, okay, it's really unlucky, and I'm gonna share it briefly. Basically, I hired someone. That person said they were gonna work. They started working for 1 week, and then I paid them. But because of the fees to pay them, I said, don't worry, I'm gonna just pay you 2 weeks, the week you worked, and the next week. And suddenly, the week after, that person doesn't show up. No matter how I try to contact them, they just disappear. I was part of a lot of Facebook groups of Filipino assistants, and then I see that somebody actually posts a picture of the person who I've hired, and it's actually other Filipino VAs complaining that that person was actually scamming the assistants. That person would get hired by companies like mine, and then she would outsource the work to other VAs, ask them to do it, and then they wouldn't get paid. So they were complaining that this person, was scamming them as well as the clients. Anyways, that was a bad experience. I decided to hire somebody else, and I found somebody great. She spoke amazing English, just like a native U.S. English speaker, and I loved her. But after like 3 or 4 months, we started having issues with not showing up to work on time, having issues with the internet, and other issues, especially the time zone. It wasn't very good that she had to work at night because I wanted her to work during my time zone. And I just said, you know what, this is just too complicated. I really didn't like it, but I'm like, okay, I guess that's all there is, because from everything I saw, all the virtual assistants were basically in the Philippines. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm in San Diego. I'm from Mexico City originally. I speak Spanish. The border's like 20 minutes from my house, and I go very often to Tijuana for other business related stuff. So I started chatting with people down there. I'm like, hey, I want to hire marketers for my marketing agency. Where can I find them? Long story short, in Tijuana there are not many marketers. There's many graphic designers, many programmers, but marketers aren't really many of them there. So I ended up deciding, okay, well, if I can't find them in Tijuana, I got to just go online and find them somewhere else. So I went to Upwork and I went to other places, but I really couldn't find pre-vetted, high-quality professionals through those sites. It was just somehow not easy for me. And I tried it, but I wasn't happy with it either. And that's when I said, oh, you know what? There, I don't know why there's no companies that just focus on virtual assistants in Latin America. And that's actually what led me to start Virtual Latinos, right? Because of my bad experiences in the Philippines, wanting to look for qualified professionals in Latin America. In this case, not just from Mexico, because specifically in Tijuana, I didn't find many. Then I started to look for people in Mexico City and other big cities in Mexico, and then it was much easier. But then I said, okay, why just Mexico? Anybody that's in the same time zone could work, right? And that's kind of what led me, like I said, to start building Virtual Latinos. We're not going to go into detail of how the whole company got started. That's for a different time. But the point is, um, I was able to hire the first person, in this case, Cynthia, for my marketing agency before even Virtual Latinos was a thing. I started building the directory, I started recruiting people, and naturally, the first people who I hired were for my marketing agency. They're still working with me, and that team grew from that one virtual assistant who was really doing marketing stuff. Now she's actually doing recruitment. And now the team is, of course, bigger because we got a lot of different people doing a lot of things. But that's kind of my personal experience. So jumping onto more things. As you probably know, before COVID, things were not as popular online compared to definitely how they are today. These are just a few statistics I want to share with you of remote work in the US. So in the US, compared to other countries, 66% of people, sorry, not so in the US, remote workers that work remotely full time were 60% higher than the global average. So in the US, remote work has already been kind of popular, but that's remote within the US, not necessarily talking about hiring outside the US. Okay, and in general, in the US, 18% more executives were working remotely than working on site. So that's pretty good. But now, of course, post COVID, now that everybody had to stay home, this has grown like 3 to 4 times. So it's been totally crazy. Talking about departments, obviously everything related to IT and technology has just grown even much more because more things can be done online naturally. But things also related to customer support or sales and even administrative stuff can all now be done online, or at least most of it, as now all of us have seen. And many businesses, including big banks and big chains of many different types of industries, have realized that a lot can still be done remotely, even if it's within the US. Specifically talking about industries, there's been a huge high jump in the healthcare industry. Telemedicine is now a big thing. Even medical insurance companies are now willing to actually cover telemedicine or basically virtual appointments with doctors, which is great. As well as for the financial services industry, all the banks are now having more and more things you can do without having to physically be there, right? And education, as you probably know, all the schools have now kind of gone online from one day to the next because they had to, right? So there's that huge potential for also working online in that industry, which is huge. Education, whether it's an elementary school or a university, that just went huge. Of course, for the manufacturing industry, for example, it's not as easy, right? Because you still need people to be physically in the places making things. So Those are just some of the statistics from 2019. Obviously, now May 2020, things are completely different. And in fact, this is kind of now the best time to hire because there's a lot more people that are willing to do it in terms of working as virtual assistants, because it's also something that now people that never worked virtually are also open to the idea. So that means there's more people that are willing to work online, and of course now there's more people willing to hire them, right? Now, the main idea is, you know, it is a great time to hire a virtual assistant so you can stop burning yourself out. That means, let other people help you so that you don't have to do everything. That's kind of the main benefit, whether that's somebody virtually or not. Now, of course, the reason we're talking about virtual assistant versus in-house is mostly, in terms of costs, and especially now that, the businesses are not doing as well because of all the issues with what's happening. Cost is a big issue, right? And more clients are actually reaching out to us and telling us, hey, you know, right now, before we open up our companies again, we're actually really considering not rehiring people locally or in-house because we want to save some money, and we definitely already saw that we can hire people virtually. So people in the law, from immigration lawyers to different types of lawyers, real estate investors, property managers, there's a lot of companies that are now definitely reaching out to us and wanting to hire people to work remotely, on top of whoever they might, of course, still keep in the US. But a lot of the administrative work, or maybe lower skill stuff, is definitely going to be outsourced. Now, let me make a pause for a second, and then we're going to be talking about what can you ask somebody else to do. So in this slide, we just really have three kind of buckets or main categories of different things that you can outsource. But the truth is that you can outsource pretty much anything that anybody can do through the computer, which now, it's surprising how many things can be done through the computer. So in these three categories, we're really just talking about marketing tasks, which can include a lot of different things for marketing, as well as administrative things, which can include calling, scheduling meetings, organizing files, managing a CRM, and everything related to general admin work, as well as things that could be related to budgeting, bookkeeping, invoices, which is really still part of administrative, but a little bit different. And that could also be related to sales. But the truth is, we have a lot more and many other categories. These are just the most typical types of things that people choose to outsource. But we're going to talk about a lot more uh, towards the end of the presentation. Okay, now let's switch to the benefits and the difference between hiring somebody virtually versus an in-house, in this case, American-based employee. So I'm in the US. We do pay people here as employees as well. And if you're all in the US, probably because most of our clients are in the US, except some in Canada and in Europe, but probably in every country is usually very similar. You got to pay for a lot of things when you have employees, whether those are employee taxes, uh, paying for an office, paying for benefits, and lots of other things that are related to hiring somebody in-house, right? So why hire a virtual assistant? Basically, because you can get a much lower cost, usually for the same type of skills. So you'd be able to spend less money for the same type of assistant, assuming, of course, you can find the same exact type of person. And you don't have to pay those additional expenses, whether they're recruitment costs or office expenses or taxes or benefits or lots of other stuff. So that's an obvious one, which is why huge companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook, a lot of their tech support, teams are not in the US, right? They're outside. Now, specifically here, we want to talk about, why should you care about hiring somebody that's Latino? Why is that better than a Filipino or than somebody in Eastern Europe or somebody in India? And that's what we're going to, discuss here today. So I specifically wanted to hire people, for me personally, that were in the same time zone as me. That was like a big thing because I wanted to make sure that people were not working what they call, the graveyard shift, or I think that's what it's called, basically working at night, which is what the Filipinos usually have to do in order for them to work during our time zones in the US. So the biggest benefit of working with somebody in Latin America is that they're basically awake and asleep at the exact same time as you, generally speaking. The biggest difference in time zones, it's 5 hours. So I'm in California. We got two people, including Alejandra, who's here in the webinar, who are working from Argentina. And so we are 5 hours apart. But that's like the biggest. Most people are just between 1 to 3 time zones apart from where they're working. So that's not a big problem, right? So that's a big benefit. The other one is in general, to be able to have somebody that's experienced and that they're quality workers. And now, why do I say this? Because at least from my experience, a lot of the people that I found through the Philippines were not necessarily highly skilled. At least not the people that I was reaching out to. I also know that there's very highly skilled people in the Philippines, especially because the industry there is much older than in Latin America. So there's everything in the Philippines, very low skilled to super high skilled for sure. But I got the feeling that anybody who just wanted to get a job and was maybe living in one of the remote islands in the Philippines, they just say, hey, I want to be a virtual assistant. And they just signed up, created a profile in one of these sites, and just started working as virtual assistants. Not necessarily being people that went to college or to the university. Of course, there are people that also are, but generally speaking, a lot of people were not, right? So at least through Virtual Latinos, we only accept people that already have experience, that are already working. Not everybody has to have a degree, but about 95% of the people that we accept have one. That means they've been to college. Generally speaking, they have at least 2 years of work experience. And for me, it was very important that we hired people that were professionals. Why? Because they're going to represent our company. They're going to be working as part of our team. And I wanted to only, work with people that would obviously represent us in a very good professional manner. So that was definitely good. Now, in Latin America, something that you might not know, working virtually is not that common compared to the US and definitely not compared to the Philippines. Like the truth is, about half of the people that are part of our community have never worked online. They've only had regular jobs in an office or wherever they worked, but they've never worked as virtual assistants. Where in the Philippines, is much more common. If you're going to hire someone, they probably already worked for somebody else virtually. In Latin America, it's not as popular. So in that case, that might be a challenge, but what I'm actually trying to explain to you is that there's a huge opportunity because there's all these people that you can now hire that are not just from one country, in this case the Philippines. There's so many countries in Latin America, and there's so many people that are very qualified, that they speak English, that they've been to the university, they have really lots of great skills, and now we're basically providing them an opportunity to work with US based companies. So again, I was just touching on the professionalism. Of course, they're also bilingual. They speak Spanish because they're from Latin America. In this case, they also speak English. And surprisingly, that's not that important to our customers. I'd say only about 10 or maybe 15% of our clients hire them because they speak Spanish. Most of them, that's just like a nice to have, but that's not the reason they come looking for a Latino assistant. It's really the time zone that's usually the biggest, and of course, the price. Um, so those are kind of things that were important to consider when hiring somebody in Latin America. But here's a few things in this case comparing between people in Latin America and the Philippines. So naturally, because people in Latin America are closer to the U.S., the cultural differences are less than in the Philippines. We have a lot of people who already have a U.S. visa; they can come as a tourist. In fact, we have a client who's already brought their virtual assistants twice or maybe 3 times already to basically come here for training, and then they go back to Latin America. And these people, of course, grew up with American culture, American movies. TV usually comes out much faster. These days everything really globally comes out at the same time, but at least 10, 15 years ago things would take much longer to reach around the world. So the cultural gap is much smaller between Latin America and the US compared to the Philippines. The obvious one is the language. Of course, people in Latin America speak Spanish, and that's also really good for companies in the US because, as you know, the Latino population in the US is only growing and keeps growing. And more and more businesses that are not Latino come to us because their clients are Spanish speakers. So they do want an assistant who can speak Spanish so they can help their clients. The time zones we spoke about. We also mentioned, the work quality. Generally speaking, the Philippines is much cheaper in general than Latin America. People are willing to work for $2, $3 an hour. That's not as common anymore because of the demand. The maybe average minimum price in the Philippines, it's probably now $3.50 or $4 an hour at the very lowest. In Latin America, it's a little higher than that. Usually just because the people that we're getting, again, tend to be a little bit more experienced and higher quality. So those are things for you to consider. And we'll go through another slide that actually compares this a little bit more in detail. Now, without taking too much time, just because we're running out of time, in 10 minutes, I want to, finalize the webinar, and we've got a lot to go through. I'm going to let you guys go through this slide later, where we compare 10 different things between Latino virtual assistants hired through our agency versus people that are hired as in-house staff in the US, or virtual assistants that are based in the US, or virtual assistants in the Philippines. So here's just more things that you can later, compare. So why hire specifically for virtual Latinos? Well, we believe we can definitely help you find the best and the perfect assistant for your specific needs. So we have a very, very unique process that really has allowed us to have practically all of our clients super happy with their assistants. And when I mean practically, let me give you some numbers. Over 65 clients have hired through our agency, where we do all the work for finding the assistants, and only 2 of them were not happy with the people that we presented to them. When that was the case, one of them just decided to not work with us. It happens. And the other company simply said, okay, this is not the right fit, find me somebody else. So we did. But practically everybody else, after we do the regular recruitment process, the people that we pre-selected for them, one of them was the right one, and they hired them, and they've been working with them since the beginning. So we have a super, super low turnover. Most of the assistants are always working with the clients since the beginning. And the reason that this happens is because we pay the assistants very well, so that they want to stay here. They don't want to look for another job. And we know that our clients are looking, in most cases, for long-term team members to be part of their team. Okay. Now, before we go into lots of different things, here's just a quick overview about how our pricing generally works and the 2 different ways that you can hire through our company. Most people, and by most, I actually mean 93%, we just did the math recently, and about 93% of our clients choose to hire through the agency. What that means is we do all the work. Our recruitment team actually interviews all the assistants on your behalf. We select the ones that we think are best. And after 7 business days, we send you the top 3 to 4 assistants that we know will be able to work specifically for your job role. So we don't have profiles or CVs that we just go into our directory or into our database, and after we speak with you, we say, okay, I think Juan and Pedro and Maria will work, and we just send them to you. That's what a lot of companies do. We don't. We actually speak with you at least for an hour in most cases, and really get to understand what your needs as a client are, so that when we do the interviews on your behalf, we can ask all those questions of what you're looking for to the assistants that we think are going to be potentially good for you. We ask them all these questions, and so when we send profiles to you, those who might already spoken to us, you're going to see that the details of those interviews are actually sent to you. All the notes that we take, we send to you, so you can compare the different candidates. We even include the voice of all the assistants that we send to you, so that you can actually hear their voice in English before you get to interview them yourself. And so most people, after we send them 3 to 4, they select the top 2, and then they interview the top 2, 30 minutes each. So through this model, you as a client would need to invest about 2 hours with us. 1 hour talking first to explain us what you need, and then another hour interviewing the top 2 candidates, which is great in terms of not having to do it all on your own. Now, the other model is where you hire through the directory. In the directory, you're basically on your own. There's no intermediaries. You get to pay them directly. You get to negotiate maybe whatever you want, but the minimum starts at $5 an hour. Okay, compared to the agency, where you could see there the minimum is as low as $8 an hour. We're hiring somebody full time. Full time is usually 40 hours a week, but in our agreements, full time represents 31 hours or more. If you choose to use the directory, going back to the $5 an hour, that's what you'd have to pay the assistant, $5 an hour. But our company charges a membership, and the membership actually starts at $3 per day. for each assistant that you hire, but it can go down to $2 a day if you hire 3 assistants or more. Okay, but we can definitely tell you more about that if you're interested. Of course, all the information is also on our website if you want to learn more. But specifically, why should you care about hiring somebody from Virtual Latinos? Well, first, you're going to probably notice there aren't right now many companies focusing on virtual assistants from Latin America. So we are really focusing on that. I'm from Mexico City. My entire team is from Latin America. So we all speak Spanish. We're all from Latin America. So we, of course, know Latin American culture, and we really connect with Latin American assistants. And most importantly, at least from the feedback that I've received from our assistants, which, by the way, we have right now over 550 who are part of our community. They've all been very happy that we really care about them, not only about them making money, but about them learning new things and giving them all the resources that they need to grow and learn how to work virtually. We always respond to their messages, and we're really always trying to support them so that they can actually be successful in getting a job through our company. Now, in terms of what we do for the benefits to you as a client, so we're really connecting entrepreneurs and small businesses, marketing agencies, with really handpicked assistants in Latin America, right? So we are providing that, making sure that we can share with you the best assistance that we can potentially find for your specific needs. If you hire through the agency, there's no ongoing fees. You only pay per hour, and that's it. No taxes. No payroll taxes, no benefits, nothing like that. You just pay per hour, okay? We vet all the assistants for you. Again, if you do it through the agency, we do like the most vetting. If you hire through the directory, we still vetted all the people that got into that directory too. But of course, the best vetting and the most strict is when we hire for you through the agency. Generally speaking, our acceptance rate into the directory is actually 7.5%. So everybody who applies, now it's been close to 6,000 people who've applied. We've accepted about 7.5%. That's into our community, which is the directory. But then the people that we end up sending you as a client through the agency ends up being the top 1%, 1 to 2%, depending on how many people we send you. So we definitely think that, we have literally the right and the best virtual assistant specifically for your needs. And again, when we send you the people for you to look over, it's after we spoke with you for at least an hour. We really know what you need. We interview specifically asking questions for the types of tasks that you need help with, which is why our clients have given us the feedback that, we really do a good job in, finding the right candidates for your specific needs, right? Rather than just sending you a bunch of profiles. So let me give you an example. I actually have people who recently called us and they're like, hey, we just want you to send me a lot of profiles. I just want to get a lot of profiles and I'll see who I want to interview. And I told them, sorry, but that's just not how we do it. We're not about quantity, we're about quality. We rather send you less profiles after we really talk to them, after we interview them on your behalf, and we really know that they're good for you, then we'll send them to you. We're not about just sending a bunch of people just because you think that you want to go through a lot of people. So we're very strict on, who also we work with, because if that's how you want to work, that's fine. It's just not with us. So let me just kind of wrap up a little bit of, the types of assistants that you could hire potentially if you were interested in hiring through our company. We got people in customer support, tech support, people who can just focus on doing appointments or follow-ups, usually related to sales. We don't have many, but we also have people who can do cold calls and lead generation. We also have people, naturally we have people that can just do general administrative work. That's the bulk of the type of assistance that we can definitely help you with. If you're in the property management or real estate industry, about 25% of our clients are in that industry. So we get a lot of people from those types of companies coming out and getting assistance from us. They help with everything related to managing contractors, to making calls, to setting up appointments. So that industry works a lot with us. If you're a professional, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you can certainly work with us as well. We have more and more assistants working with lawyers. We're surprised. Now we have people working with doctors. So that definitely is an assistant that you can get. If you're, for example, a marketing agency and you're looking for a general virtual marketer, we have those too. Or we also have like specialized what we call virtual marketers, people that only do one specific thing, whether that's design and branding, or maybe conversions and optimizations, or social media. Brandy, yes, I'm gonna talk about how we help physicians in just a minute. Thank you for the question. Um, so let me just finalize with this. We only have a couple more slides. So social media and community management, or anything related to blogging, email, whatever the specialty of marketing it is that you're looking for. We also have those specialists. Those are naturally slightly, higher price because they have more experience. So I'm going to just go through two examples here of our clients, and then I'm going to answer your question, Brandy. So this is actually Julio. Julio is in San Diego. He currently actually hires 13 people. Here it says 9, but he recently hired more assistants. So he's a company in San Diego that does a lot of different things, including providing a software for the biotech industry. He, of course, also started with just one assistant, in this case for customer success. But then he got a graphic designer, then somebody to help with web, then somebody to help with procurement, somebody to help with QuickBooks, and a lot of other stuff. So we have a lot of different types of assistants. Virtual Latinos background check. Okay, yeah, about background checks. Okay, I'm gonna get to the question so we have more time. So, anyways, this guy Julio actually believes that we're like their secret weapon. He actually does not let me publicly, like on the internet on our website, say that he hires from us. But of course, this is a webinar, so that's okay because you can't get to this information unless you signed up for this. And then we have another company that's actually a nonprofit that is actually working with us as well. So he helps people in Tijuana who are orphans, and he's been doing great. His assistant was working with everything related to marketing and getting, sponsors. So yeah, before I go into the takeaways, let me answer the question. So Brandy, in terms of what we can do for helping physician and office and doctors. So we right now have 3 doctors' offices that are working with our assistants, and they're 2 of them are just doing mostly what I think are called general admin work at the office. So they help with appointments, calls, managing data, helping with doing filing, digital filing, of course, of things related to the patients. Some people are concerned with HIPAA compliance, which is about privacy. If you have things that are all web-based systems, usually that's not a problem. Our assistants can just log into your computer if you wanted to have a separate computer for them. Otherwise, they can simply log into your systems through their computers and then log out, so there's no issues. So I hope that kind of answers the questions. If not, I'd be happy to give you more detail later. In terms of the question for background checks. Thank you, Michael, for that question. So the truth is, we do not actually do background checks ourselves. We believe that based on our process, which takes assistants on average about a month to be able to be accepted into our community, we know that we get really high quality people that are not looking out to do something bad. But the truth is, yes, anybody, whether you hire virtually in Latin America or locally, they could turn to be bad people and do bad things, right? So that's when a background check is important. We do offer the ability for you to actually reach out to a third-party company that does international background checks. Cost about $200, and they take about 3 weeks to do a background check. We don't do it because we don't think it's necessary, and none of our clients have done it that I'm aware of so far. One company was interested in it, which was a lawyer in Chicago. I gave her the information. I'm not sure if she ended up doing it or not. The truth is, when I talk about background checks, it's when I talk about trust. Really, whether you work with somebody across the world or right next to you, you got to start, learning to trust them. And of course, that takes time. So it's super important that whoever you start working with, you work with them and get to know them, because if you can't trust them, obviously, it's not going to be something good to give them the access for things that are, of course, private. So it's important that you get to know them slowly. So I hope, Michael, that answers the questions. We don't do background checks, but you can if you want to, and we'll give you the contact of that company. We do lots of other types of checks, but what we do is we really focus on making sure that the people that we hire are people that are qualified, that they're good people, and that they're looking for a long-term job. That's usually the most important. Let me read this question. Mario, I'm an attorney and I'm looking for a paralegal or someone with experience working with attorneys. Okay. The reality is that we don't really have people that have experience working with attorneys, simply because There aren't, again, this whole working in Latin America virtually is pretty new. We do have lawyers who practice law locally in their countries. In fact, let me give you an example of who works with their attorneys. One of them, we got a company in Texas who just hired 2 assistants. One of them is a lawyer, the other one is not. The other lawyer hired somebody on purpose that was not a lawyer because she was afraid that the lawyer might give legal advice that might not be correct. So, they just hired somebody that's not a lawyer to help with admin tasks. So, they can help with a lot of paralegal related stuff, but not necessarily, be able to have the legal experience that you're looking for. You're going to have to teach them to answer the question shortly, I guess. Mariana, can I hire a VA for a short period of time, project based or specific tasks? The short answer is not really. I mean, you could, but our assistants aren't looking for based stuff and short stuff. Like if you really just want to do something small, you should probably go to Fiverr or Upwork. That's how those platforms work. Really, they're project based. Our assistants are looking for long term, and by long term, I really mean at least a year, if not more. Uh, the truth is, you want to think about our virtual assistants really as part of your team. They actually get in touch with you. They report with you every morning. You can give them an email address from your company. They're part of your team. So that's how we view the assistants. So yeah, if you're not looking for long term, our company might not really be the best solution for you. But the truth is, at least in our agreement, if short term for you is maybe 3 months, then yes, actually our minimum is 40 hours in 1 month. So you could hire somebody for just a month and that's it. But generally speaking, it's not what we're focusing on. Michael, does the client contract directly with the VA or with your company? Great question. So no, the VA actually doesn't work with you legally directly. If you hire through our agency, then you sign an agreement with us. We're a California-based LLC. We offer you a service, and then we have separate agreements with our assistants to work with us. If you hire them through the directory, then yes, you're on your own. You can sign with them whatever you want. We are not involved in any part of the process. In that sense, you could work with them directly, and it's totally up to you how you work with them. How does the labor laws of the VA country come into play? Great question. Well, that depends. Every country is different. I can only speak, for Mexico, which I know the best because I'm from Mexico. But I won't have time right now to answer that question because it's a long answer. But it's definitely important to look into the labor laws of the specific country. So if you're going to hire somebody full time, that you consider that. Michael, if you reach out to me, I'll be happy to answer that later. Uh, Cynthia, can I hire a complete team of VAs, not just one assistant? Yes, for sure. So that's a great question. I'm glad that you're asking that. So generally speaking, we do want you to start hiring only one person first, at least if you hire through us. Why? Because we want to make sure that you're really happy with the first person and that you see that we do a great job in the recruitment process. So even if you want to hire 3 different people, we tell you, hey, let's just start with one. After you hire the first one, then we can hire 3 or 5 people at a time. But yes, we got people who hire 2 people, people who hire 4, and people who hire 13. Most people start with one because that's kind of how we make it a requirement. But yeah, you can build a whole team. In fact, we have 2 clients who actually hired assistants to manage the other assistants. So once your team is usually 5 or 6 people, maybe you could hire another person who actually manages the assistants for you too. So yeah, you can do that. I have a concern, Caesar, on wasting time. Could there be an issue with the VA working with more than one person? Okay, great question too. Well, our assistants are dedicated for the hours that you work with them. We are not a call center. So whenever somebody's working with you, they're only working with you. They're not sharing their time with anybody else. Everybody who works through our agency has to do time tracking so that we know that they're working with you. But if you're hiring somebody part-time, of course, they're only work with you part-time. They will certainly be able to work with somebody else with the hours that they have left, but they're not working with you. Okay, I hope that answers that question, Caesar. Um, then hiring your firm, does that give us a tax deduction? Yes. So we actually are actually technically offering you a service. So if you hire through us and if you request it, we can give you our W-9. And then yes, you can deduct this as part of your taxes because it's a cost for your company. So yes, you can certainly do that. And of course, our clients have definitely asked us for the W-9 and we send it to them. So it's not a problem. I think I answered all the questions so far. I'm not sure if anybody else How's other ones? Um, Okay, while other people type in maybe more questions, I'll just go back here to kind of summarize the takeaways. In general, we can help you find qualified, skilled people in Latin America so that, it's people that you can trust, that can be part of your team for the long term. We help you easily, get in touch with them and work with them in different time zones and different types of people. Again, if you go through the directory, obviously you're going to get in touch with them directly, and once you reach out to them, then you can keep conversations outside our platform. If you hire through our agency, we will also give you full transparency. We'll give you their name, their phone number, like their mobile phone number and their email, so the day-to-day you're actually communicating with them directly. You don't have to go through like a middleman. The middle In terms of the relationship, yes, you hire us, you pay us, and we pay them. You hire them through the agency. And of course, as your team grows and your virtual staff grows, your business grows as well, and you get to, hopefully save time and money. So yeah, that's it. Basically, it's the Q&A. I will be able to provide the slides, if that's a question. Brooks, oh, there you go, Brooks. Thanks for calling earlier. Sorry that I couldn't take the call, but it's because I was hosting exactly this webinar. So thanks for joining. Could you explain the partner program for other staffing companies? Certainly. So we do have a partner program where we actually pay the partner program. The partners, depending on the type of hiring that they do. If the clients are going to hire through the agency, where our company makes money from a small commission from the hourly rate, then we can pay between 25 cents to 75 cents an hour to our partners. Now, the partner really has to be very involved in the whole, let's say, process of recruiting with your client, which is why we pay an ongoing, basically, fee to you for working with us. And then we have more like an affiliate, which is different than the partner program. An affiliate is really just a one-time fee for you referring somebody to us, but then we really have to do all the work on contacting them and reaching out to them. So yeah, we have both options. Just the affiliate, where you get a one-time commission, or the ongoing commission if you work as a partner with us and really integrate with working with our team. So I hope that answers the question. All right. Um, And by the way, I think, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, but I am the founder. Just so you know, everybody usually books a call initially either with me or with Yaner, which is the person here in San Diego, which also helps us with everything related to new people who are interested in hiring. This is the link to book a call with me. If you want to obviously chat more about it, I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope that you found the webinar helpful. I hope that I told you a little bit about how we work, what inspired me to start this company. And just kind of to wrap up, let me just tell you a bit about our team, because I'm very proud of the team that we have. First of all, Alejandra, who's here with me, she's from Argentina. Well, she's from El Salvador, but currently, living in Argentina. She's great. I love working with her. She's been working with us, I think, for over 7 months. Um, we have another girl, Mariana. She's helping with everything related to accepting all the applicants. She's also in Argentina. I got Cynthia, who's the person I mentioned, who was working initially for a marketing agency. She's like a recruitment expert. She does all the recruitment for our agency clients. I got James, and she's in Guatemala. I also got James. James is in Colombia. He does our web design and a lot of our graphic design. I also have Kathy. Kathy is in Costa Rica. She does everything related to our advertising. So she's great with that. She's actually been part of my marketing agency for at least 4 years. Now she kind of jumped into Latinos as well. Who else am I missing? We got a really important new person. Her name is Jennifer. And if you decide to work with us, Jennifer is our customer success rep. She's amazing. And I'm going to tell kind of a short story about her because I loved the way that we hired her. So we have a Telegram group. Telegram is like a Facebook group or more like a WhatsApp group where we have all of our assistants working together, and all the assistants, they're basically chat with each other. And so this girl, Jennifer, we accepted her and she was amazing. She started actually welcoming everybody into the group. I'm like, that's awesome. Like every time somebody joins the group, she's like, oh, hi, welcome to Virtual Latinos, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, that's really nice. Like she doesn't have to welcome everybody on our behalf, especially because she doesn't technically work for us. So anyways, I spoke with her. I'm like, hey, I want to learn more about you. Let's do a Zoom call. So I called her. We spoke. I loved what she was doing. And long story short, we hired her. And all the assistants love her. And also the clients love her. She's also helping doing all the onboarding sessions. So thank you, Jennifer, for all your work as well. I don't have any more time. I think I finished my 1 hour. So I'm going to just leave it at here. If you have any questions, please feel free to book a call with me. The link right there. And we are going to be hosting these webinars again. So thank you so much for attending. I really, really appreciate you coming, chatting, and asking questions. Again, this is Jaime from Virtual Latinos, and hope to talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you.